Shemai, Cityport, Croeso, Chris, Dewey. What is cracking, ladies, gents, boys, girls, and I suppose fighting fantasy fanatics. That's a little bit cringe, but I'm keeping it in. What's cracking? Today we're talking about Khare, Cityport of Traps. So this book right here, it's part of like a series, the Sorcery series. So the Shamatanti Hills. This one is a direct sequel, so you're going to have items from that first book that will carry over into this book. So, what I found out, what I actually forgot about, is you should read these all more or less in order around about the same time, unless you take a lot of notes. So, I ended up having to just use a little bit of a guide, you know, to figure out what references I needed to go to for items that I did actually have, that I just couldn't remember the reference numbers. Maybe down the line I'll just read them all in order as one massive adventure, but you know, because I'm purchasing these books more or less in order, it's inconvenient, but you know, it is what it is. I'm just gonna have to start making some proper notes. So without further ado, let's actually talk about the book. So this book was published back in '84 by Puffin. It is 511 references long. So if you are interested in these books, you're gonna know most of them are 400 references. So this book is a little bit longer, and you can appreciate it in the book itself when you're reading it, and you get a little bit extra content. It's quite nice, it's lovely, to be honest. And yeah, it's the second book in the Sorcery series, where it's just really one massive adventure. And it feels like a massive adventure. There's a lot of references to the first Sorcery book in this one, and undoubtedly there will be a lot of references in the third book about the first and second books. So it is what it is. And it's worth mentioning that with the Sorcery books, there is a fair bit of sorcery. You have a small little magic spell manual right at the back of the book, where you can look through it, memorize the spells, and then you're not meant to go back to the book throughout the adventure. So you're supposed to be a wizard and memorize all your spells. It is what it is. It's up to you personally. I mean, some of them are just like, it'll be, do you want to cast hop or hob? And like, it's just one letter differences. You don't know, you can't remember, to be honest. A lot of them are just silly. It is what it is. It is fun though. It is fun. It is a good little fun book. So yeah, I think that's about it for Sorcery books. They're basically, yeah, it's a long series of books. You have magic, and the artwork is generally pretty nice. So let me give you a quick rundown of this book. Should you buy, should you not buy, you know the score. So let's go. So yeah, so Khare, Cityport Traps. You're basically just in Khare, Cityport Traps. You're just in this Cityport, and that's about it. You know, I found this more of like, you know, when you're playing like Mass Effect, and you're in your ship, and the elevator is actually the loading screen. This book felt like the elevator. Like, it just sort of felt like filler between doing something cool and doing the first book. So I don't know if the third book's going to be really, really good or what, but yeah, I don't know. I went into this book expecting it to be like, because obviously on the Wizards version you got that nergly looking bad boy, and I don't know if he's actually in the book, but I never encountered him, and that was a bit disappointing. But yeah, so you're just in Cityport Traps. You're trying to find 4 wizards or 4 people who know like lines to the spell kind of thing, so that you can get out. And that's about it, guys. It's sort of like the City of Thieves, but it's not as good. But should you buy this book? Well, I mean, if you're doing the Sorcery like series, then you're probably going to need this one. You can't just skip from book 1 to book 3. You do actually need to read them all in order. I'm under the impression, unless you do just use a guide, then who cares? But yeah, you know, if this was a standalone book, then I'd just say, nah, maybe give this one a miss. You know, I don't know why I gave it 5 stars in Goodreads. I didn't even give it a proper review. I just gave it 5 stars and moved on. So that is what it is. You know, the brief rundown. You're just in the Cityport Traps trying to get out so that you can continue with your adventure. It's really like being stuck in a side quest in Skyrim or something. It's not the best, but the cover looks really cool. So there is that. So all in all, that's the end of the brief rundown, I suppose. Should you get this book? Not as a standalone. You wouldn't get it as a standalone anyway. You need it in the Sorcery series, and it's just one of them things. You kind of need a book, but it's not very good. So there is that. It's probably the weakest one so far in the Sorcery series, maybe one of the weaker ones so far in the series anyway. If I had to do a top 11, I suppose I'd probably put this closer to the bottom, let's be real. So without further ado, let's talk about some covers. Let's liven this place up. Let's go on to something a bit more cheery. So without further ado, let us go. So the puffin covers are pretty metal. Let's be real, they are pretty metal. You've got this like albino looking sludge monster thing with teeth, and it's just gross and amazing. It's really cool. I still don't know what the monster is. I didn't encounter him. I'm actually quite annoyed. Or if I did encounter it, it didn't have like an art page dedicated to it. And, you know, if it's like a manticore, then you know what a manticore is, but I don't know what this thing's meant to be. But yeah, it looks nurgly. It looks very nurgly. I think there's actually a model that looks similar to this right now, like a poxwalker or something. So there is that. This atmospheric. It's sort of, it prepares you for a lot more than what you get, I think, you know. And that's the thing. That's the awkward thing with Khare Cityport traps. You know, there's a juxtaposition between what the cover conveys and what the story tells you. Because, to be honest, it wasn't really my thing. But yeah, the cover alone, the cover's pretty metal. I like the cover. It's pretty creepy. It's pretty gross. But I think it's time to talk about the cheeky Wizards cover, because I quite like the Wizards cover. And, you know me, there's always a little bit of bias. But without further ado, let's talk about the Wizards cover. So the Wizards cover, once again, pretty nurgly. You know, this guy looks a bit like... He looks a bit like Jabba the Hutt mixed. Well, if he worshipped Nurgle, I suppose. It's pretty cool. I like this cover a lot more. I just like the colour green. I think I'm just a sucker for the colour green. But it looks gross, and I love that. You know, you got this big boy here. He's squidging his zits for whatever reason. Is it meant to be intimidating? Who knows? Who cares? Who cares at the end of the day? The dude looks cool. He's sat in like this pool of whatever. Slime. Gross stuff. And, yeah, he looks imposing. He's got a bit of an Elvis hairdo going on. I think it's just meant to be like a massive maggot thing. But he looks a bit like he likes Elvis. And there's really not a whole lot to say about the cover, man. It's like it's just green. You got these blob things on the wall. It looks like they're festering like zits or egg sacs or something. It's very gross. It's very nurgly. I like the cover. I like the colour, to be honest. It's very reminiscent of the Darren Shan books from the Demon Artist series. And I loved the Demon Artist series, my goodness. That is a hill I will die on. They're just fun books. They are quite good books. They get a bit cringy later on in the series, but I did really enjoy the Demon Artist series. But I'm like a broken record here. So yeah, that's about it for the Wizards, but there's not really a whole lot going on in the cover. It's just kind of gross. It sets up this whole thing where maybe like... If you've read the Shamatanti Hills, there's like that plague village. It's sort of it's like a throwback to that village where there's like plague and stuff. But I don't know. I can't really remember that being mentioned at all. And obviously I read the book. So yeah, let's talk about the Scholastic version. So without further ado, let us get into it. So we have got the Scholastic version. And in all honesty, the Scholastic version is pretty boring. I still don't know what this creature is meant to be. I still cannot remember fighting this creature. Either it's like an optional encounter, because I can't remember it being like a boss fight or something. But you've got this creature. It looks more Lovecraftian than this one, more like... I want to say something like you find in D&D, but I don't quite know what it would be in D&D. Like, what, a Demigorgon, something like that, maybe? I don't know. But the cover's pretty green. You got this monster. You got smoke coming out of his antennas. It's a bit like a beholder, except it's obviously not. They're not eyes. So yeah, I don't really know how I feel about this. I like the colour. I just don't really care for the monster. It looks a bit silly. It's not as gross as it was in previous iterations, I suppose. You know, you got slime coming off it, but it's still I don't know, it's not my cup of tea, I suppose, is what I'm saying. But yeah, the cover's not ugly. I mean, I've got Caverns of the Snow Witch. I've got the Scholastic version, and although I usually put down the Scholastic versions as being like the inferior versions, which in my opinion I don't like the art style, that's about it. They do feel really nice in your hands. There's a lot of nice details on the pages and stuff. There's like rips drawn in. It's quite cool. It's quite nice. I quite like that. And I can only imagine holding the Scholastic version in my hands. I'd be like, yeah, this book's actually alright. You know, this cover isn't that bad. but it is what it is, you know. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really hold up to the previous iterations as well. But I mean, I think now it's coming up time to put these in order. So from first, second, third, how would that go? So let's have a look. So I'm gonna have to say my first pick, and this was actually quite difficult. My first pick though would have to be whatever's on the Wizards cover, cause I do like the color green. I do like this monster. It's actually just a really cool monster. It is quite gross. I think it's meant to be. Well, it's obviously meant to be gross. It's just a fantastic cover. You know, I still don't know what the monster is, and I'm gonna keep saying this because I don't think I'm gonna pause recording all this audio just to find out. So that's number one. What's number two? Number two has to be the puffin version, because although I do like the monster's ugly in less of a cool way, more of just like, oh, it's actually quite ugly, I don't like looking at that kind of way. The monster's cool, however. It's just not as cool as the green thing. It's still nurgly, it's still like a chaos spawn kind of thing, but that's about it. You know, it's very reminiscent of that Rogue Traeger era art, which is just, it holds a special place in my heart. I love that goofy fantasy style, but it's, you know, the Wizards cover seems a little bit more sinister, a little bit more creepy, and I appreciate that a fair bit more. And that's about it. So obviously then, third place goes to the Scholastic. Once again, you know, they're punching, but they're not. They're punching above their weight class, you know. You can't feel it. It doesn't leave an impact, you know. It's very minimalistic because I'm under the impression that it's just easier and cheaper to produce, and that's about it. You know, there's an element of love that's lacking from that cover. You know, it's the sort of thing you just sort of slip on the table and be like, bam, here's Khare Cityport traps, and yet the content inside the book isn't much different from the content in any of the other books. It's just the art style's different. But I don't know. It's something about it's not the right shade of green for me. It's orc skin green, and I don't really like that on anything other than orcs. So that is that, ladies and gents. That is that. And as far as I care, you know, I prefer. Well, it's gonna go Wizards, Puffin, then Scholastic. So, what about the actual story? Let's tell you something a bit about the story. Let's go into the story with a little bit more depth. So, the story, yeah, you just sort of like, at the start you need a key that you get at the end of the first one. And if you're like me, and you forgot the reference, it's just a massive hassle to get out. It's just an obnoxious hassle to get out. But if you got the reference, you put the key in, you open the door, you forget to take the key out the door. Oh my days, what are the odds? What are the odds? So now you haven't got this key, which really wouldn't be of much use to you anyway, unless maybe in one of the last books you have to come back the way you've gone. I don't know, but yeah, you need a key. If you don't have the key, you have to put up with the guards just being annoying, or you have to bribe them. I had the key. I couldn't remember the reference. I had to look that up. That was really annoying because I didn't write the reference in my notes. I just wrote down the key, and undoubtedly it says what reference I'd need. So that is that, and then you just sort of go off to the Cityport of Khare. Oh no, Khare Cityport traps. There is like a dungeon where this wizard fella, he's been trapped, and he's like, yo, these locks are designed to protect magicians. Oh no, there's something silly like that. If you cast magic, you can open the lock, basically, and it's been made to like keep people out. I thought that was pretty cool. The man actually gives you a clue. I think he does give you like one of the 4 lines that you need. But yeah, there's not really a whole lot to say about this guy. You know, he's got one arm, and that's about it. Well, I say he's got one arm. His arm's been cut off somewhere below the elbow, and it was done by a goblin or an orc, something like that, in the Shanker Mines from Shamutanti Hills, which I thought was really cool because you go in there and chances are you bump into that creature. I thought it was just a nice little throwback. It was just reaffirming the connection that all these books take part in the same sort of world, and it's just one big adventure. I really like that. But once you open the lock, he follows you out and he goes off on his he goes off by himself. He's free. You freed yourself and him, and then you just head off to the Cityport traps, and that's about it. So we've got the Cityport traps, and yeah, you meet Flanker, and he's the assassin that you bump into, that you find in the Shamutanti Hills. He's the assassin that you have the option to save, And yeah, there's so much looping in this one. You're just sort of walking in circles, and this is really my problem. That's why I said it's more like the elevator in the Mass Effect ship. It's like a big loading screen. You just spend too much time in the same area with too little happening, and it's not necessarily like a big issue. I just found it really anticlimactic, you know. You got Flanker, who seems to be a lad, you know. He's a boy. He seems more fun than the adventure itself, because there's a part where you bump into him in like a tavern, and he actually just gives you money. He's like, here's money for drugs, here's money for whatever. You can have 2 pints at most. If you have a 3rd pint, it will knock you out. It's that strong. And I thought it was pretty cool. To be honest, if it's going to knock you out by 3 pints, I just want to know how strong that is. Because it's like, you must be drinking like something like absinthe or pints of whiskey. You know, we're talking about 40% upwards of, I don't know. I think I've seen a bottle, like a little bottle of absinthe go for, it's either 70 or 90%. And I know it's a big jump. But generally speaking, I don't drink absinthe. So that is that, you know. I just want to know how strong this ale is, or this mead, something like that. It's one of them fantasy alcohol drinks. But yeah, he's like one's alright, 2 will make you merry, 3 will knock you out. So you're like, okay bro, I'm not gonna have 3. This guy comes over and he starts talking to you, he's offering you drinks, and you have the option of having 3 with him. Don't have a 3rd, have a 2nd one. Because then the 2nd one's really like something cool, and I've skipped a fair bit because it's just circling around. It's pretty boring. This bit now, it's really cool actually. So you do whatever, you go up for the night, you wake up and your arms in like this weird little guillotine, and the guy who runs the tavern, apparently he feeds everyone human meat, which is kind of gross, kind of weird. But you have like this one chance to save your arm. And for some reason, it instantly game overs you. I don't know how. You just have one arm. You're not game overed. Like, you're handicapped, not dead. Let's be real. But yeah, you do that. You get out. And the guy sort of leaves in a hurry. You don't think, oh, I'm going to kill you now, bro. You just sort of leave. And it's just kind of weird, because I know for a fact that I, as an adventurer with a sword, with a shield, or if I like to pretend I have a warhammer, because they're a lot cooler than swords, you know, this guy would be dead. He wouldn't have been able to leave the room, but it is what it is. You could potentially lose your arm to this guy who's evidently a massive little cannibal. So that's kind of cool, and that's kind of cool, to be honest. And this is the thing with this book. It plays out like the City of Thieves. It plays out an awful lot like that, in the sense that you're running around this Cityport of traps. But the only difference is, with the City of Thieves, you're running around going into different shops, having different encounters, meeting fun characters, all this. City of Thieves, honest, oh my days, is such a good book. Cityport of Traps, you're just running around this town going in circles, waiting for something to happen. And that's the difference. This one's actually quite boring, because I remember finishing this book, and all you do is you just say these lines, and you finish the book. And it's like, wow, okay. Alright, because that's the thing, it's 511 references, so, like, I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. You know, there's a lot of, like, optional encounters as well, because I'm flicking through the book right now, looking at all the art. I didn't encounter half of this. And whether or not I just, like, took, like, the right path, it's just kind of weird. You know, there's encounters. There's an encounter with Dark Elves, and they're all smoking hookah, and I think you can attack them. But yeah, there's a lot of, like, references that I've missed out on. Because this is the thing, guys and girls. If you take the path that I took, and yeah, evidently, if you took the path that I took, you're going to miss out on so much cool stuff. Because, like, right now I'm looking at reference 11, and it's a living corpse, and it's just this guy who's been delimbed effectively, you know. He's a floating torso, floating arms, floating legs, and a floating head. It's really cool. It looks actually like a really annoying fight, because you have to attack each and every single individual part by itself. That would be quite fun, actually. Whether or not it defeats you, I don't know. But yeah, this looks like a really fun encounter. My goodness, there's so many fun encounters that are completely optional. What is this, boys? So yeah, evidently I took the pacifist role, and I missed out on all these cool things. But that's really what you're gonna find, you know. Unfortunately, I used a guide because I completely forgot all the references, and I didn't think to write down the references that I needed from the Shamatanti Hills. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go. Like, once I've read all 4 of the sorcery books, or is it 5? I'm not entirely sure. I will probably go back and read them all together and do another video on the sorcery series as a whole. But yeah, you know, that's basically the book though, guys. You're walking around in circles around the Cityport of traps, trying to get these 4 lines of, I want to say they're all from wizards. 4 lines from wizards to open up the main gate to leave. And it sounds about as fun as I made it sound. And you might be sat there in your gaming chair reclining softly as you take a swig from your G Fuel, saying, well bro, that doesn't sound fun at all. And it's because it's not. This book is, unfortunately, it's actually quite boring compared to, like, the cover looks really cool. It makes you think you're going to be in a dungeon filled with like poison and snakes and maggoty things, and this big baby who looks a bit like Shrek's ugly cousin. No, unfortunately you're not. You're just in the Cityport traps, walking around, trying your best not to succumb to any of the traps. And there's a lot of like random like riddles and stuff and annoying like things where you have to take chances. And I think the traps element is really all there is to this. Is just a lot of traps. I know, for instance, there's a creature on a pedestal who's actually alive, and it's like a trap. And I was like, oh, a trap. Because it's like it's playing statue. You go into the house behind it, you do what you need to do there, you come out and the statue's head's moved. And it doesn't even look like a statue the way it's been drawn. But for some reason, your character's completely oblivious to the fact that it's blatantly alive. But yeah, it's that's about it for the story, guys. Not a whole lot happens here. You're just walking around the Cityport until something happens, and then you resolve that, and then you eventually leave. And that's about it, guys. So let's move on to sort of like a summary. So without further ado, let's go. In summary, for a book that's 511 references, this one's kind of boring, man. I don't really... If it was a case of you didn't have so many optional encounters that you can completely avoid, this book would actually be quite good. Because, you know, like that floating body thing, that was really cool. I don't know why that just wasn't shoehorned into the actual story yet. It's kind of disappointing. It is ultimately, it's going to be my fault for using a guide. Like, that's my fault. And I'm going to have to maybe read through the Shamatanti Hills and this book again to collect all the references myself to read the next sorcery book, and I probably will have to do that. But yeah, this book, man, it's 511 references, and it feels like there's 511 references of absolutely nothing. You just walk around in a circle throughout the entire journey trying to figure out these lines to get out of the place, and it just seems massively inconvenient. How are people living here when it's just so inconvenient and awkward to live there? I don't get it. And I suppose that's the thing, guys. Shamatanti Hills is actually really good in comparison. I think Shamatanti Hills is either my top 3 or like the top 4 when I did my top 10. But this one, I don't know, it's just sort of weak. It's the weaker one so far. And I can only imagine the next sorcery book is going to outperform this one with regards to interesting content. Because it's sort of, on one hand, it feels like this book's trying to replicate the feel of the City of Thieves. And the City of Thieves, my goodness, is probably my favourite book. I'm not sure if I did list it as my favourite. It's probably my favourite book. It's going to depend on the day, maybe. The City of Thieves, amazing. Yeah, it tries to replicate that feeling without actually doing it. And as a result, it's just a boring walk around town until something happens. So I wouldn't recommend buying this as a standalone, because you do need the Shamatanti Hills for contextual reasons. But yeah, you literally only really buy this book to finish your adventure, I suppose, because you can't jump from book 1 to 3. You'd have to go from book 1, 2 to 3. And that's about it, guys. This book very much is like a loading screen, in my opinion. And this is the thing, some people out there are going to love this book. You're going to be like, whoa, how can you say that about my favourite book? For me, it just didn't connect. It's sort of like the Creature of Havoc. It wasn't interesting to me. And that's a shame, because I don't get it. I do not get it. And this is the thing, I'm probably going to sit down one day, read this book again, and be like, oh, this book's actually alright. But yeah, that's my experience with it. I didn't fully enjoy this one, and that's all I can say about it, guys. Because like, I can't really be like, oh, should you get this book? Yeah, you kind of need it for the Sorcery series. It's just a shame it's not very good. Like, that's about it, guys. That is about it. Should you get this book? You need it, so yeah. Are you gonna like it? Probably not. It's like doing homework or something. It's pretty boring. But yeah. So that about summarizes Cityport of Traps, isn't it? It's a shame that after doing, I think, 2 like spin-off videos, that I've come back and just been a little bit let down by Khare Cityport Traps. I thought it said Cityport Trials then. I was gonna say I've been calling it the wrong thing throughout my entire video. But yeah, it's just a shame that it's kind of disappointing. Obviously now I'm gonna try and do the next book next Thursday and so on and so forth. In all honesty, the Fighting Fantasy series, this is sort of like the fun thing I do on my channel. So this is going to happen on a weekly basis. If not a weekly basis, then it's going to happen on the Friday after. Because obviously I try to upload a video every single Thursday about Fighting Fantasy books. So we're going on to the next book next Thursday. And I want to say it's going to be like Trial of Champions. What number is this? No idea. No idea. I can't see them from my bookshop. Yeah, Trial of Champions next book. No, spoilers. I think I really like this book. I read it when I was little. So, yeah, that's about it, guys. So if you like the video, feel free to give me a like. Feel free to comment. You know, tell me your thoughts. Tell me your feelings. I want to know. I want to know about your feelings. And yeah, like, comment. Feel free to subscribe. I'd say hit the notification bell, but you know, I only post every Thursday, so it's not hard to remember. And I don't think my subscriber count is high enough for it to really matter. So yeah, just come on in when you feel like it. So there we are, guys. I hope you had a nice day. I hope you've had a lovely week. I hope this month has been nice too, to be honest. Hopefully I'm going to see you again next week. You know, that's all I can do. So without further ado, guys, take care. Thanks for watching. Take care.